Her last voicemail lasted exactly 27 seconds. I know that because I have listened to it so many times the number feels carved into my skull. 27 seconds of her voice, and then a sound I still hear whenever the house is truly, painfully quiet. Not a scream, not a crash, just silence that does not feel empty. If you have ever received a final message from someone right before they died, you know what I mean when I say it does not play like normal audio. It feels heavier, thicker, wrong, as if the phone remembers more than it lets you hear. The message was from my little sister, Lara. It arrived at 11:41 p.m. on a rainy Thursday. I did not answer because I was half asleep and still angry with her. We had argued earlier about money, about responsibility, about me playing the older brother too hard. When her name lit up my screen, I saw it, rolled my eyes, and flipped the phone over. It stopped ringing. 30 seconds later, my voicemail chime sounded. I remember thinking, I will listen in the morning. That was the last normal thought I had before my life split into before and after. She never made it to morning. I woke up to 3 missed calls from an unknown number and 1 from my mother. I did not need to listen to any of them to know something was wrong. There is a tone, even in a small red notification badge, that your brain somehow understands. A weight. My hands shook when I finally tapped her voicemail. The first thing I heard was rain, hard against something metallic. Then her voice, too close to the mic, shaky but trying to sound casual. Hey, it's me. Don't hang up, I know you're mad. She gave a small nervous laugh that now feels like a knife. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier. I'm driving back from Dad's. You were right, okay? About the car and the brakes and everything. You happy? Another tiny laugh, wind buffeting the mic, a turn signal ticking. Anyway, I'm on the highway. I think I took a wrong. Wait, that car is... There was a sharp intake of breath, a high distorted squeal of tires, too close, too loud, like it was happening inside my skull. Then a sound I still cannot place. Not metal, not glass. More like the air itself being cut in half. And after that, nothing. Not the soft background hiss of a line. Not the faint hum you only notice when there is nothing else to hear. This silence was different. Heavy. Thick. Pressed in on my eardrums like pressure underwater. It lasted 4 seconds. Long enough for my ears to realize the call was still alive even though she was not speaking. Long enough for my brain to start screaming that something was deeply, irreversibly wrong. Then the message ended with the cheerful, synthetic voice I have grown to hate. End of message. To replay this message, press 1. According to the police report, Lara died 11 minutes after that voicemail. Run off the road on a sharp bend. No skid marks, no debris from another car. Her phone was missing. They said she probably dropped it when she lost control. They said it might have flown out into the woods. They said a lot of things that sounded like explanations, but never explained why her voicemail had no impact sound. No crunch. No screaming. No chaos. Just a clean cut. Like someone had sliced the recording with a razor and sealed the end with absolute quiet. I clung to that voicemail like it was the last piece of her that existed. I backed it up, forwarded it to myself, saved it to different drives and clouds. I memorized every word. I hated myself for not picking up, and then I punished myself by replaying the moment I did not pick up, again and again. The first time something changed, I told myself it was just grief bending reality. It was 3 weeks after the funeral. I lay in bed, lights off, eyes burning, that hollow ringing in my ears that only comes after you have cried too long. My thumb found the play button like it had learned the path on its own. Rain, apology, nervous laugh, tires, breath, cut, silence. Only this time, in those 4 seconds at the end, I heard something else. It was faint, too faint to be sure, but it sounded like another voice on the line. Low, almost a whisper. Not a word yet, more like somebody exhaling directly into the mic. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. I replayed it. Again. 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 Rain. Her voice. You were right, okay? Tires. breath, cut, silence. But now that I had heard it once, I could not unhear it. There was something there, a tone buried inside the quiet. I transferred the file to my laptop and opened it in a cheap audio editor I had downloaded years ago. The waveform of her voicemail looked familiar. Peaks and valleys for her voice, jagged spikes for the squeal. Then the last 4 seconds. They were not flat, not blank. The waveform pulsed, tiny repeating movements, like a heartbeat trying to hide inside a straight line. I should have closed the program. Instead, I isolated those 4 seconds and amplified them. On the 8th playback, I finally heard it clearly. My name, not hers, mine, whispered, drawn out, in a voice that did not sound like anyone I knew. I ripped my headphones off and sat shaking in the glow of the screen. Rationally, I told myself it was pareidolia, my brain forcing a word out of noise. Except it did not just sound like my name, it sounded irritated. Like something on the other end was annoyed I had taken so long to notice. The next day, I found an audio engineer in the city and lied that I was editing a horror podcast. He ran the file through better software, peeled away layers of noise, sharpened the frequencies. When he isolated the end and played it, his hand moved automatically toward the volume knob even though it was not loud. We both heard it that time. Eli. Then, underneath, just out of sync with itself, pick up. He turned to me slowly. That's messed up, he said. How did you do that? I didn't, I said. My voice sounded very far away. He burned the enhanced clip to a USB and handed it to me like it was something unclean. I left, feeling like the air had changed density around me. That night I went looking for other people like me. If you search the right wrong phrases, you find strange corners of the internet. Last voicemail changed. Dead loved one silence at end. Recording adding new sound. Buried between conspiracy threads and grief blogs was a 3-year-old post with almost no replies. Someone wrote about a final voicemail from her husband before he vanished on a hike. His message ended in a strange, heavy silence. Weeks later, she swore there were new sounds in it. Breathing, a faint scrape. The next time she played it, there was a whisper she was certain had not been there before. One reply, an account with a random string of numbers. Yes, don't listen more than 7 times. That was it, no follow-up. Both accounts inactive. In the weeks that followed, I found more pieces. A mother with a voicemail from her son before he hit a tree. A man whose girlfriend called while walking home, her message ending in that same thick quiet. Different countries, different phones, the same pattern. Abrupt ending, unnatural silence, and, if you listened long enough, something new growing in the gap. The idea burrowed into my thoughts. What if voicemail systems sometimes capture more than sound? What if, for a few seconds, they record the space just past the moment something goes wrong? I visited Lara's crash site. The road curved between leaning trees, branches knitting overhead like ribs. Someone had put up a white cross with her name. Flowers wilted in their vase. The air felt wrong, like a room where a loud argument had happened hours earlier. I hit play and let her voice bleed into the trees. You were right, okay? The squeal, the breath, the silence. Out there it felt less like absence and more like a held breath. On the 4th second I felt it, the prickling sense of another person standing right behind me. Eli. I spun around. No one. Just the guardrail and the woods and the empty road humming with distant traffic. The voice had not come through the headphones. It had come from the air. That night at 11:41 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID. Lara. I watched it vibrate itself across the table. I let it go to voicemail. A new icon appeared. I did not listen. Not that night. When I finally pressed play the next afternoon, it was only static at first. Then, layered inside the hiss, I heard my own voice. Why didn't you? The system notified me that my voicemail storage was almost full. It showed only one message saved, taking up nearly all the space. Lara's last voicemail. I copied the file to every device I owned, to 3 cloud accounts, to an external drive I hid in the back of my closet. Then I deleted the message from my phone. The next day, it was back. I watched it vanish. I watched the inbox clear. That night at 11:41, the app opened by itself and replayed the whole thing without me touching the screen. Only this time, just before the squeal of tires, I heard a third voice, quiet and calm under hers. Almost done. The silence that followed was no longer 4 seconds. It stretched, thick and layered, full of overlapping whispers. Eli, pick up. Don't hang up, I know you're mad. Do you hear it? Almost done. My apartment buzzed with it. The audio bled from my phone, my laptop, the cheap smart speaker in the kitchen, even from the bathroom drawer where my old dead phone lay with no battery. I did the only thing I could think of. I hit record. On everything. For nearly half an hour I talked, filling the line with anything that was not that silence. I told stories about Laura as a kid, the songs she wrote on a 3-string guitar, the way she used to fall asleep upright in front of the TV. I told her I was sorry. I told whatever else was listening that it could have my devices, my storage, my sleep, but it could not have those last 27 seconds. Eventually the buzzing stopped. The next morning every file I had made was gone. In their place, on every device, was a single audio clip named in plain text, her last voicemail, then silence. The duration was no longer 27 seconds. It was 15 minutes. I have not pressed play. Not yet. Sometimes, when the apartment is at its quietest and the clock reads 11:41, I hear the beginning in my head anyway. Rain. Her voice. Hey, it's me. Don't hang up, I know you're mad. And somewhere past the point where the original message used to end, I hear my own voice. Very close, very patient. Okay, Eli, it says. You have made them listen this far. Now it is their turn. That is you, by the way. If all of this sounds impossible, check your phone. See if you have any voicemails without transcription, any messages stuck at the bottom with dates you do not recognize, any recording with a few seconds of dead air tagged on the end. I used to think horror lived in screams, in the loud moment when everything breaks. Now I think the worst part is the second after, when nothing happens and you realize the world is just going to keep going anyway. Phones keep ringing. Inboxes keep filling. Somewhere, a server you will never see quietly backs up a moment that should not exist. That is what keeps me awake. Not the accident. Not the diagrams in the report. The knowledge that there is a 15-minute file out there with my sister's last 27 seconds stretched into something else. Something that keeps rewriting itself every time I try to forget. The timestamp shifts by a few seconds. The size grows by a few kilobytes. Once, for less than a minute, the name on the file was different. Not her last voicemail, then silence. Just my full name. When I refreshed the folder, it had changed back. I have tried to destroy it in every way that still lets me sleep in the same room. I have wiped drives, smashed old phones, mailed a copy on a cheap USB to an address that bounced back as undeliverable. It does not matter. Every time I reduce the places it exists, it finds a new one. Lying in the dark one night, I finally admitted something I had been avoiding. If I ever press play, I will not be the only one listening. Whatever has been thickening that silence has been pushing the file into new machines, new networks, using my own voice as bait. It is not just a recording of the past anymore. It feels like a draft of something that has not finished happening. Maybe it needs an audience. So this is where a sensible person should back out, swipe away, close the app, go watch something lighter, because you have already done exactly what it wanted you to do for me. You listened. You gave shape to the gap after her last breath, just by letting my words run through your head. You pictured the road, the curve, the wet asphalt. You imagined the crash that never made a sound. You stepped into that 4-second room with me and stood there, waiting for something to speak. Maybe, sometime in the next few nights, a notification will pop up on your screen at a time that means something to you. Maybe it will say you have one new voicemail with no transcription. Maybe it will be from a number you recognize but know you should not be seeing again. If you are smart, You will delete it without listening. If you are human, you will not. You will tell yourself it is spam, or a pocket dial, or a glitch with the carrier, and you will tap play anyway, because curiosity is stronger than survival when the name on the screen belongs to someone you miss. And if you hear nothing at the end, no crash, no scream, just those thick seconds of heavy, waiting quiet, do not do what I did. Do not replay it 8 times. Do not drag the file into an editor and zoom in on the flat line and wonder why it is not truly flat. Most important of all, do not lean closer to the speaker when you think you hear your name. Because if you give it enough listens, if you give it enough of your attention, sooner or later the silence will stop being silent. It will say something back. And whatever has been using my sister's last call to reach through to me will realize there are other lines open now. Other people who know what thick, broken silence sounds like. Other phones that sit on nightstands in dark rooms, waiting for a sound that will never come. You can close this and try to forget everything I have said. But if your phone ever rings at a strange hour and the name on the screen makes your stomach drop, remember the number, 27 seconds. If the message lasts that long and ends in quiet that feels wrong, you will know. You are not just listening to someone's last words. You are standing at the edge of something that does not want to stay on the line alone anymore.